next guest wants to bridge the age gap and help everyone get along. That might be important.
Yeah.
Let's welcome the founder of Generation Bridge, Brian Sherwood.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, thanks for having
First
me.
question I want to ask you. Okay, we're millennials. A lot of viewers are Gen Zs.
Younger than
Do
us.
you think the generation gap between us, millennials, and Gen Zs and the boomers is exaggerated?
Boomers are parents.
Well, I wouldn't say it's exaggerated. Where I come from is I'm a marketing research guy, so the terms are really helpful for me, right? That's a good way to kind of put people into sort of shared experiences. But where we get into the idea that a millennial is so different from someone else, it starts to be something where we kind of cloud it up. Now, part of that could be true, like technology, right? It's the most technologically advanced generation of all time, but we could say that about any generation that's come up through, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Gen Z is way more technologically proficient than we are because they're
digitally
younger
native.
than us. Yeah.
as
Well,
opposed
I have
to
a
we're
I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. So they're going to be way more technologically advanced
Which
than
is
any of
Generation
us.
Alpha now, right?
I guess, right? I don't even know anymore.
So just generally talking about maybe our parents
Yep.
and younger people, what are the differences you see?
Well, the differences that I look at are really more life stage driven. It's what you're dealing with in your life. Now, sure, we can look at the age ranges as a way to kind of target people and sort of figure out that people are alike in this sense. So if we're talking about real estate, first-time home buyers are going to be more in their 30s or late
course.
20s, right? You start to kind of figure that out. But there's still first-time home buyers who are 45 and 50.
Of course.
And so they need the information
Increasingly
that
more these days.
increasingly more, right? And young families tend to be starting out later.
Correct.
But, so here I am with a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, but I have a brother who's 5 years older who has kids that are out of the house, right?
So everything exists.
So everything exists, and it really becomes down to like, what are you dealing with in your life? And so that's why we put on events that deal with that. It started out as a little tiny thing or a little tiny idea in our church, the United Methodist Church in Monroe, and it grew out. We started talking to people, what are you dealing with? And the ideas of caregiver and aging really came out. We have what we call like a lot of Q-tips in the audience, right? So there's a lot of white hair.
I use that term. I'm familiar.
So we started talking to them, and one of the things that they're dealing with is caregiver and aging. And that's really our strong suit right now. We're working with Southwestern Connecticut Agency on Aging to put on this event that's going to help people navigate estate planning. What do you do when you have to care for somebody and you have to leave work for half a day to do that? There's a lot of things in terms of productivity. We're living longer. The 100-year life, there's a stat that I like to pull out. There's a book called The 100-Year Life. Kids that are born today have almost a 50% chance of making it to 100.
That's crazy.
I would say higher, actually.
It could be
because
higher.
I believe that medicine is going to advance.
And the way we're eating, right? Like we're starting to learn more about what we've been putting into our bodies. So
Oh,
as
yeah.
we change.
If we could time travel back to the 90s, I think the biggest thing we would regret is the food we put
Yeah.
in on our body.
That's exactly right. Like, and I'm at that point now where it's like I've got to start dealing with those consequences today in order for my 60-year-old and 70-year-old self to come back to terms with. So we look at those types of things, and we can learn across these different generations. So I have wisdom, I have experience, I can share that with younger people. Younger people have a lot more things to offer me too that I need to be willing to listen to. That goes into workplace dynamics, that goes into all kinds of places. So we create these events where people come together under shared common interests and shared issues, and we hope that they talk to each other and create relationships because
Talking to each
relationships
other.
make it happen.
Talking to each other might
yeah.
be important.
Yeah, it might be important. See, like for a while, and maybe not recently, but for a good many years, I've heard from, parents, friends, aunts, uncle, whatever, that people of that age, and they're like, oh, y'all millennials, you're so entitled. You're such brats. You don't know. You don't know how good you have it. Things that every generation says to the next generation.
one.
I'm sure we'll say that
right,
to the next
we may say
generation.
that to, Gen Alpha.
Yeah, Gen Z.
Alpha.
Kids
Yeah,
today.
Kids today.
today.
Right, maybe
The music
when
they
we're
listen
60,
to.
when we're in our 60s, and I was a little offended.
You should be.
Yeah, I was offended, and in that case, is it even possible to bridge that gap? Because we always have problems with people who are 30 years younger than we are.
Well, I look at it as like when you come together in person, when you're together, all of a sudden there's at least some sort of, I don't know, politeness that comes in. When we're on social media, and like this is the stuff that drives me nuts, and I'll admit I laugh at it half the time. Like it is really funny when they start saying, well, I didn't wear a helmet. Yeah, but childhood death was so much higher back then, right? Like it's crazy, right? But just like, oh, I'm tough and you're not, right? And it really drives me nuts. But when you think about when you go to a family event, Some families have more drama than others, but for the most part, you can start to look at, well, I love my mom, and she may think of some things like this, but I'm still going to deal with her. I'm still going to treat her with respect. The same thing happens when we come in person. I think we can, if we realize that some of the things that we paint a broad paintbrush with, like millennials as a term in terms of like the negative stereotypes, if we start to get away from that and just look at you as an individual, when we have a conversation like this, all that other stuff isn't part of it. It's based on how you and I interact with each other. We need to get back to more of that, and that's why we think that in-person events do that.
Yeah. May I ask how old you are, roughly?
I am 44. Although, let me tell you this. So this is another one of these things. So I have 2 kids in daycare, right? So this is funny. This happened on Tuesday. I have 2 kids in daycare, and I go to pick up my second daughter in the other room, and she's in the room with like the 5-year-olds. And so she's kind of feeling all tough and everything because she's hanging out with the old kids. One of the girls in the room turns to me and says, "Hey, Maddie, your grandpa's here."
Well, because you have gray hair.
Yeah.
So I have the gray hair, exactly. But like that's the kind of thing where I share a lot with the younger parents in that group because I'm dealing with like, what are my kids going to be wanting to do in school? What are they going to want to? I have to relearn math apparently. This is all kinds of the stuff that we're dealing with as we age, and it doesn't matter that I'm 45 or if I'm 25.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with the same
Even
thing.
though you are maybe like 20 years older than our typical viewers, but I feel we talk just fine.
I think so.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. I mean,
It does. You can't go into it with that sort of chip on your shoulder, like you guys don't understand. No, I have a lot to learn from you guys. I don't know anything
I
about
feel like
this
people
stuff.
have a lot to learn from everyone,
yeah,
and
from
that
everybody.
age is just
Yeah.
a number.
It's just
It is just a number. I agree with you guys 100%.
Well,
okay. Where can our viewers find out more about what you do?
You guys can find out more about us at www.generation-bridge.com. We have a blog where we put up different things based on the life stage challenges that you might be dealing with, financial and legal, health and wellness, and then general life stage issue, right? Like that's our catch-all.
general issues.
Gotta have a catch-all, right?
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate it.
Brian.
Thank you guys for
Great
having
to
me.
see you.